Well, hello, everybody. How are you? Or as I, for some reason in my spirit, have been thinking, hola. So, welcome. I think that's what hola means, is
Hmm.
welcome, greetings. So, um, I like that word anyway. Hola. That's a very,
Yeah.
hello, everybody.
Isn't it?
How are you? Or as
Yeah.
I, for some reason in my spirit, have been
Uh-oh.
thinking, hola. So, I
Uh,
think we're
We
live.
picked
We
up.
know
We picked.
that.
We picked up an echo. Yeah, I forgot
yeah.
to mute it. Sorry,
Sorry about
guys.
that.
No,
I-
no, I think that's cool. At least we know that we are live. So, hola, everybody. How are you? It's a good day. And remember this, if you're
There we go.
here and if you're participating in this, then you're at the right place and enjoy it. It's amazing what we get to do while we're here, and it doesn't always have to be, someone else's vibe. You can create your own vibe and then add that vibe. So, hey, vibes, we're all up on it. So, again, welcome. Thank you, everyone. We just speak favor over you all, us, everybody else. Can't, never not enough favor. That's all I got to say. And as we like to say, if you have favor, then that leads you into nothing missing, nothing broken. That really leads you into that whole peace thing, that surpasses all understanding. That's cool, because I look at my understanding and realize I don't understand too much, but, at least I got the favor thing going. So,
Mhm.
anyway, and remember to be kind to your mind. So, we're there. So this is Thursday. I am always honored and privileged to be joined by Mike and Cindy from Evolutionary Energy Arts because here, we get to discuss things that I see more concurrent, and then you add it to kind of the esoteric point of view, and it gets fun.
Mhm.
Of course,
Mhm.
some
It sure
people may
does.
say we have a sick definition of fun, but anyway. So how are you two beautiful beings doing?
We're doing good. We're enjoying the weather. It's beautiful. It's only like 80 degrees, which for us is good, and it feels like crisp and not too humid. And I just love this time of year.
It's cool. I was out mowing today. We're in a severe drought, and but there's pockets where we have water underground here, and it may anyway. And so I'm out there kind of like you. I mean, I was just buzzing. I was giving praise to the Creator. I become so much more aware of my consciousness and what a gift that I, as this being, have been granted this thing called consciousness. It
Mhm.
just blows my mind. I mean, I'm, it's kind of like the quote in the movie Joe versus the volcano.
Mhm.
Remember that where Meg, who was playing the character, where she said, her father said that most people are never alive, that only the very few live in a total state of awe.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No matter where this journey is going, where it's been, it's still this. And I tell you, as I was out singing, then driving along, and I asked myself, so Steiger, what is consciousness? And my answer is, I don't know, but I'm having fun finding out. So,
That's right.
Hmm.
That's right. That's wonderful. We've been so blessed in our area and I'm not sure what's going on in our area. We're not having any chemtrails, but in
there's an answer to that, though. No one is.
well, we have
The
gotten a
shutdown, but
report
The shutdown.
in the east,
yeah.
in the east,
It
some
seems like some people do see them still, but it's not everywhere. And I don't know if that's maybe where, I don't know, is it something that certain
certain areas in the east.
left-leaning states are still doing stuff?
Well, see, in Florida, you can't chemtrail. DeSantis, they made that a law.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
how that works. I don't know what the penalty is. What are you going to do? Go up there?
Yeah. Yeah, you're gonna
But anyway,
stop
I
it.
like I
Oh,
like the intent.
yeah.
I do too.
Yes.
Yeah. It's just pretty wild times. Yeah. There's so much happening.
Wow, it really is. And this is why I love when we get together because, Cindy, you have the guides that are talking to you, and Michael, you have your gift as well. I want to just say, and I don't want, did anyone else experience anything Monday morning around 3 a.m. I just want to put that out there, and maybe near the end, we'll talk about what I went through. And Mike, you're certainly welcome to speak about it if you want on your end. But yeah, I'd just be curious to see, was there something more going on?
There's definitely things going on. Yeah, I'll talk about it in the end. And I am getting this, like when I channel, I get this upwelling of information, and I do have something coming in from a certain group of beings, and I was going to channel it out this afternoon. But it does have to do with the ether, and things are happening to people's bodies.
Yeah, we literally are having our systems rewrote, literally. So like we have this etheric template that the physical body is created from, and that's changing. So yeah, we are mutating, we're changing, and I think it could be rough in certain spots. We are definitely being asked to shed that which no longer serves us, and that could be very, very tough physical. It literally can take out some people. I do think, a lot of things we take for, well, natural causes, a lot of it is stagnant energy. It's energy we can't process. It's trauma that then manifests in different areas of the body as these conditions that they'll say, well, died a heart attack, had a stroke, what have you. But ultimately, it's all energy. And
Yeah.
we're being asked to process and release so we can move forward into a different era.
It's interesting. I have a book I started 20 something years ago. I'll never finish it, but in one of the chapters, and I wrote this back and started it in 2001. Anyway, where there was this change that took place, and in my book, it was with all 12-year-olds around the world. But you know, as I think about that, that has happened to us before, where there has been this change to a certain group of humans, let's just say, and they change, but the rest don't.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen this in I don't know, Mike, I probably addressed that question to you, is that have there been previous ascensions?
Oh,
I
I
mean,
think
are
so.
we the ones that got left behind the last time, and we're hoping that, or trusting that we may be the ones this time? How would you see that?
I think that there's ascensions that have happened with different beings like all along. Like when we look to the Anasazi, I think that's what happened with that group. And they just seem to have disappeared. The Hopi consider themselves in some ways descendants of the Anasazi, but there's a whole culture that just seems to have disappeared with no trace of warfare. It's not like you could see war happened, they were slaughtered, that type of thing. Now they just sort of disappeared, and so I do think it's happened with various cultures. Actually, there was some channel that said that the Anasazi did go ahead and ascend and literally are out there in the stars now. They're literally being on manned ships, and they've gone to like a whole different level of consciousness and exploration. But I do think also that's Bigfoot and other entities too. Sometimes when creatures don't like what's happening on the planet, it might look like there's a mass die-off, but it's really also a mass ascension that can happen, and they just shift to a different frequency. And really, we're layered with energy bodies. We know this. We could see this, literally see this with technology now. You could see with the Kirlian photography your aura, but you can also detect different layers there. Barbara Brennan, if you've never read her
Hmm.
books, she's wonderful. She could see like 14 or 15 different layers to the aura, and some other psychics the same. So I think what happens is we're like the Russian dolls in a shell, one within the other within the other. The physical body is just that innermost one, but all the rest stay there. but I think we can also, at some point in time, raise our frequency up where we either drop that one, the Tibetan rainbow body. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, you stalled for a second. I
Oh,
got the body, but
Tibetan rainbow body.
okay, all right.
There's literally been documented cases of the monk.
Now we lost you. Hello. We're still live, right? Yeah, I can see that. Rainbow body, yes. Okay. All right. So we will speak favor to this situation, get rid of all those little internet rats, and we'll just speak the connection to be made on this because this was getting good. And just to add to that, when they come back on that conversation, I mean, that's kind of exactly what's, you know, the thing with the rapture. Isn't that the whole idea behind the rapture? They'll be back on, folks. Same idea, you know, a set group that ascends meets ascension. And yeah, so we know what they borrowed that from, right? So we'll get Mike and Cindy back on again because we got a lot to talk about. There is some crazy stuff going on. So how is everybody? Everybody. Hello, Mark. How you doing, brother? Good to see you. How's everything down there in Brazil? I hope it's groovy. Cool. Timothy, what's up? Good to see you and Emperor Rex. Elizabeth, how are you? I'm just going to go and say hello to everybody. Why not? Deborah, how are you, sweetie? Stephanie Marie, this creature somehow had. Okay, so are other people having an event that happened? It would be Monday morning at 3 a.m. Please let me know if you have. Write it in the chat room. And if you're listening to this on replay, thank you. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure that you give Mike and Cindy the support by, making sure to subscribe and all that other stuff. Feed the machine, right? Hello, F Kitty. What's up? Good to see you, Nina. How are you? John, good to see you. Let's see. I bet you they're texting me and saying, trying to log back in. Should we try a new link? Um, I think the old one would work. Um, but we can always give me 1 second, folks. We'll send them a new link if this doesn't work. So anyway, as I was saying, to everyone in the chat room, let me know because something was definitely going on. And if you had something that was, well, unusual, here we go. Are y'all
Wow.
back?
Yes, that was
They
great.
knocked out
Okay,
the
well, I
whole
was about to
internet.
send y'all a new link, and
Yeah.
so I don't have to do that now.
I think it's because we're so close to that point. They don't want people knowing that we're like getting to that ascension point, and we could be outside of their control. Boy, they hate that.
I was just talking when we had the internet rats. That's what I call them. Get the hell out of here. But Paul, the wizard that he was, that was his whole ideology behind the rapture, was that there would be a certain group that followed him, and that they would be ascended, literally taken out. Well, in fact, he said, first the dead would rise to meet their ascension, and then we who were the living would meet them in the clouds. That's some pretty, as I look back, and I was like I said, I used to teach this shit, and I'm going, holy crap. You get into it now, and I'm going, wow. I mean, you think that thing out, and that's just like really out there. But
Hmm.
anyway,
Hmm.
but that's what it was. It was about an ascension. They just, I'm not on TikTok. Don't, my guides told me to stay away from that thing, and so I pretty much have been around long enough to listen. Took me a long time to listen, but I finally figured some of it out. But that's, they were this expecting this rapture thing here a couple weeks ago, and of course it didn't happen. And it's sad. I mean, again, we spoke about this last week that it's a form of escape, I guess, is how some
Yeah.
maybe that's what we're doing. I don't know. Could ascension be interpreted as that? An
I
escape?
I think it's yeah, sort of escaping this lower realm. You know,
Yeah.
it's really wild. So we were talking about the Tibetan rainbow bodies. So
Yes, please continue.
they sometimes there's nothing left of the person. You know, there's even photos that show them turning into a light body and making that process. But other times there's a tiny little skeleton type thing, like a mummy, where the entire body of the person shrinks down, like you ever seen those shrunken heads. The entire body shrinks down to maybe be 18 inches long and weigh a few pounds. And they just never are really clinically dead. They just translate. You know, it's wild when you start reading into the Hindu books because, you know, they sound like Star Wars sometimes, and other times they just blow your mind with bilocation. You know, there's instances of bilocation literally pulling from the ether, you know, new atoms to create a body to temporarily inhabit to go and do whatever it is you gotta go
Send
do.
messages.
So
Send
was the Hindu um question, because I and think this would be the time to ask such a thing, is that um so I have no doubt that the group of humanity that we call India today, and there's a lot of different religions there, but Hindu primarily, that would you classify that as a pre-Adamic time?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I would agree. That's what I've often thought. There was a whole different race of beings, a whole different, I think the earth was different.
yeah. Oh, yeah. I think it goes back to that tradition goes back to before the Younger Dryas event, goes back to the previous Bronze, Silver, Gold ages. So it has been distorted a little bit. You know, there's so many branches too. So you do have the same sort of thing where you get a lot of let's worship the messenger instead of paying attention to the message. You
Hmm.
know, but ultimately, when you look deep in to it. It's just the recognition that we are consciousness. At some level, we can shift from one body to another body to another body, but we're ultimately just consciousness itself. That's what we are at the core. And we will create different bodies for ourselves, have different experiences with. And the consciousness, you know, can't end and it never wasn't in existence. It's just basically going through a variety of different experiences. So, yeah, that's where we get the whole yuga system
So how
from.
do we get the blue beings? You know, because many of the gods were, and they seemed to be human as anything else, and except they were literally blue. I
Yeah,
know that there's in other cultures referenced to blue beings, but yeah, I mean it was very prominent in the Hindu history.
right. Yeah, they are different beings. Again, we've had beings from Sirius here, from the Pleiades, which again, the Pleiades themselves are all like refugee star system groupings. So it's really Lyrans in the Lyran Draco Wars caused so much destruction and ruined so many planets that people took off in different directions. But you have a wide variety of beings, a wide variety. It actually
It
says,
sounds like Genesis 6 to me. I mean, it talks, that Genesis 6 is the
yeah,
fallen angels. I'm getting parallels to a much older story that was taken from, and it seems like what
oh,
you're speaking of is exactly that event, but of a different
well,
time.
there are those scholars that have studied deep into both, archaic Hebrew and the Hindu, and they are convinced that the Hebrews are a sect of Hindus that branched off and did their own thing. Because,
So, so they came from, isn't the story that actually it was in India primarily? They went into the Indus Valley, which then led into Mesopotamia, i.e., Sumer, which then led into Mesopotamia into Babylon, then which would be the Hebrews.
Right, yeah. And when you see some of the terms and the things like, again, Abraham, and Sarah, it's Brahma and Sarasvati. And you can see the root words are exactly the
I was
same.
going to say, I mean, I don't speak Hindi, but that sounds to me like Abram and Sarah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and who's Brahma? Brahma's the creator being,
Yeah.
So Brahma is said that when a new age starts, Brahma emerges from the navel of Vishnu in order to create a manifested realm. In
Did you
this,
know that Adam and Eve were the only two humans that never had a belly button?
that I've never heard, but it could make sense.
Makes sense if they were in a test tube.
They didn't have a belly button. They didn't have an umbilical cord.
No
Yeah,
belly button required.
that tells you a lot right there.
Doesn't it though?
Oh yeah.
Hmm. So then what are us?
And when you
I
look at
smell a
it,
rat, a big rat.
when you look at it, the Jewish time of mourning, that's called sitting Shiva, where you sit in mourning. That's Shiva. Shiva, again, the god of death and destruction and ultimately new beginnings, but also can be viewed as consciousness itself.
You have
So,
to die though to get to the new beginnings.
well, unless you ascend and just translate, so it's
Glad
fast.
you're saying this because it's like, Michael, you're in my head because I was, driving love my zero radius mower. I mean, it's just freaking far out, but that's
They're
exactly what
fun.
I was thinking about this transition. That if consciousness is, then death is not, it's not a sense of death. It's literally, I'm just transitioning to a higher realm.
You don't have a sense of death.
Anyway, I
You just
apologize for interrupting, but it was just this thought like, this is very coincidental.
do you remember
Synchronicity.
do you remember most of your dreams?
Oh, yeah.
Because
Uh,
it's a lot like that, it's
1986, March. I was taken by four angels. That's what they're always four. They've been visiting me throughout my life, but in 86, I went to a place where there was this. It looked to me to be like this middle, like you had stones that were beautifully polished on each side, and there were trees, and there was this kind of river going in between this, and we were light beings. Everybody I saw was in, I called it back then, they were in a light suit. And but anyway, yeah. So
yeah.
yeah, I do remember my dreams. I just can't figure out what the freak happened to me Monday morning because I know something happened. You know.
So that sounds like a 5D experience. It sounds
Is
like
that what that would be?
that's what it sounds like. Yeah, if you're talking light beings, yeah, 5D.
Oh,
So
Michael, I got to tell you, the one time I was, when I was a union drywall finisher, we were working in a government facility and I got transported. In fact, the dudes who I was working with wanted to know what the freak happened to me, but I was taken to this place where there was this literal crystal throne and there was this crystal sea in front of me. I mean, anyway, yeah, so I digress. I apologize.
no, no. I mean, see, that's what's so cool. It's just in some ways, it's just like we wake up, and that's wouldn't you agree?
Well, I think it is like going into the dream world where you just don't even know that you've gone there. You're just there. Same with leaving the body. I believe. Same with ascension. We're not even really going to know. We're just
I've
going to
heard
be
that
there.
some people don't even know that they're dead.
Right.
No, whatever happened to me, it felt very, very different from any experience I've ever had. And I was definitely out of my
Like,
body in outer space, looking what I knew to be source. I knew and source was talking to me and I was talking to source and I mean, it was the craziest experience. And no meditation, no dream world, nothing has ever come close to what I felt when I was in outer space looking at source. I really feel it was a NDE because I was very sick. Don't get me wrong, I was very sick at the time. And I had that experience and I knew I had a body. It's like I have a body, I'm talking to source and everything's cool and it was more nonchalant than I expected it would be. And Source was more understanding than I thought Source would be. It was very personal, extremely personal. But I didn't lose anything. It's not like Mike was gone. It's not like I was gone. It's not like I had lost anything. I mean, I had everything with me somehow. So there's just so much happened that I can't really explain.
Cindy, would you say that that changed you when you,
Big time.
yeah,
It really helped me go through it. You know, yes, very much bittersweet changed me because I know now whenever anything really bad happens in my life that I perceive to be bad, I'm fixing to have a breakthrough. I'm fixing to do something really good. You know, the harder it is, the bigger the breakthrough. So if I'm in pain, if I'm angry, if I'm hurt, uh, it rewired my brain to say, hey, you're getting somewhere. So that doesn't make it easy, though. Don't get me wrong. It
She was in a
doesn't make it
period
easy.
where she was channeling like crazy, and I think that's because she was so close to the other side.
There was, yeah, I was touching the veil for sure because I had
yes,
channeled.
many times you're drinking from the garden hose, but in this case, it was the fire hose.
Yeah, I was the fire hose,
But
and but pulled me through. And to this day, being able to look back on that experience changes my perspective. Time does do something to it. Time does dampen it a little bit, but if I sit down and just remember it, then the tears will stream down. So it was different, and I didn't lose anything. That was the cool thing. I was there. I had all my memories, all my experiences. I could know anything I wanted to if I just asked. But I only had a couple of questions, and I got those answered, and I guess I went back. So there's that, you know.
I'm hearing in my spirit is that we're already there. We're sharing this memory.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
I don't know. I get that more and more. It's like, when I started speaking Spanish, I don't speak Spanish. And the other evening, Lynn asked me something, and I said, and I spoke it in Spanish, and she said, "Where did that come from?" It's like, but anyway, getting back to that, I think we're there. I mean, if we can visit it, then that means we're not alien to it.
Right.
Hmm.
That
Hmm.
means that there's something that's natural that otherwise I would think that the energy itself would repel anything that would be out of sync with it.
It is. It's very
Maybe
much
that's why some
that,
people have to come back so often.
I guess,
I don't know.
I'm probably still gonna, our karma. We have to finish out our karma. What I got a while back from the guides was you need to finish out your karma on this planet before you can move and do a clean start on another planet. You can't go to another planet without finishing your karma. And if you do, you're going to have karma to finish on that other planet. So
Mhm.
it's best just to finish it out here, whatever you have. And that's why some people choose to not have children. And maybe they wanted children, but they're infertile. They just couldn't have them. But they chose not because children do bring about karma. So,
Hmm. I've come to understand for myself is that, the beginning of my journey into this realm wasn't extremely pleasant, but throughout all of that, I found the key. And, and that key for me was either you live forgiveness or you don't. And I have seen it in my life that um, it's the only way. And it's a state of consciousness. And I don't know, the guide's been telling me, it's more like what I keep hearing is that way to go, dude. Just keep on the way you're going.
just keep on.
Everything's going to be just fine.
I know. And we have so much going on. I was reading the what you wrote for the information on the channel, and yeah, we are in a kind of a pickle right now,
Yeah,
but
we are.
at the same time I see that as the bigger pickle we get in, the more progress we're going to make on the other side, like a slingshot. You pull back, and the harder you pull back, our slingshot's getting pulled back right now, and it's hard. It's difficult to hold on to it.
Wow, it's so odd that we're having this conversation. But no, it's not, because in this channel we're channeling. I mean, and the synchronicities are just validation of the evidence of what we're experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
And I am convinced that um, we've chosen to be at this time. And there was some fine tuning, and um, yeah, I think our voices, we're the ones that go against the current,
Yeah.
and we're needed. Minds like us, and this is why we're all here together. We come from very diverse backgrounds, but we still seem to have one thing in common, and that is that we haven't bought into the narrative, or if we did, we've somehow untangled ourselves from it, and we're that counter voice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it is, Cindy, it's right. It's sometimes you feel like you're an island,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mhm.
we're really not. We're more than in our numbers than what we realize.
No, once we leave the body, it's like we're in the eternal mind. So a lot of
Yeah.
people think the mind, the brain is here. No, it's all over the body. So when we are working on someone, we work on them in the 4D. It's really interesting. And you can make changes to the body in the 4D. Well, guess what? Those changes do make their way down into the 3D. This world is so amazing the way things work. We can deal with a lot of what we're dealing with in the etheric realm. In fact, that's everything. So if someone breaks their ankle, you don't go up to the brain to try to fix it. Like literally, I go down to the ankle and I work on the ankle. Mike works on the ankle, so, but it's some type of wiring that got them to
Isn't the
break.
ankle connected to the soul?
Well, yeah, it's got to be. But
I
Everything.
mean,
Yeah.
something happened
It's
in their
it's
life
it's
to
all
make them break it.
interconnected. I mean, I find it when we don't work on a lot of people in person anymore, but I used to work on tons of people in person. But when I see Cindy go to a point that'll be like 3 feet away from her ankle, somebody's ankle, she's finding trauma from when they're 5 years old.
yeah,
And then she'll start to describe the trauma to them. It might be a stepdad and something. This is what she does all the time. She just pulls it out of the ether.
And when you
And it's just fascinating to see how you could read the energy like that
Yeah, when you
so
correct
clearly.
the energy, you correct the trauma. You correct the trauma that
yeah.
created the broken ankle. So it's this domino effect, which is kind of,
Perfect illustration of
oh,
the
it's good.
slide.
Yeah, it's great. Dominoes.
And,
Yeah.
and and speaking of which, that's because I if an individual begins to find the center of themselves, the expression is, you can't build a house in the middle of a storm. The
Mm-mm.
house has to be built on the foundation before the storm comes in, and then it weathers it. And my point to all that is that we're living in a time where to say it's precarious is probably an understatement, but it is getting most interesting. And then before we got live, every folk, we were talking about this um, because not only in the United States, but the world, but the United States is now the driver of the events. And it's going to be interesting to see how that works out. But here in the United States, in America right now, we're in civil war. We have the executive branch, which the judiciary branch has decided to mount an insurrection against the executive branch. We have an ineffective legislation branch that seems to be incompetent of figuring. It's amazing. They want to be reelected to say that they're going to solve the problem, but they're the ones that made the problem. And when we have this house in chaos, the Christos said, a house divided against itself cannot stand. That actually comes back from the Solomonic Proverbs. So we are definitely a house divided. And if the man who they now call the peacemaker, if he decides to invoke the Insurrection Act, that's when these dominoes would begin to do a much more quicker momentum, in my humbled opinion. And I'm just a simple man. How do y'all see it? Because you cover these every day, these events, and you know,
Yeah. You
Yeah,
can't build a house with old wood.
it still
Can't do it.
feels like as we've said before, I feel like we've averted some of the worst timelines, but it still feels like there's, certain things that they're going to probably be able to trigger. So, again, we're going to have to get through it and keep our vibes high. And yeah, it's tricky, how you keep your frequency high when, literally we could end up any time, any day, have declarations of, warfare on our soil, with different factions. We see it all the time, and that going back to at least 1871 with Albert Pike's, statement of three world wars and, what would be the second Civil War. You have George Washington's Valley Forge vision, which was actually documented. And, again, there's going to be some sort of invasion of the US, but we could say, well, the invasion already happened to a degree with all the people coming over the border in the last 10 years, especially, the 4 years under
yeah, yeah,
46.
it was the largest single mass human migration in human history.
Yeah, modern day, we should say modern day,
Modern day, yeah.
just like what Oppenheimer, and that whole quote, saying, yeah, because Oppenheimer was alluding to like the ancient wars that we were talking about in the Vedas and stuff, having things like nuclear bombs going off, things that are like
Yeah.
50,000 suns. And they actually say 1.6 billion people died in that Kurasheka war. And if you look at the Western numbers, we didn't have anywhere near that many people on the planet. According to our history, we had maybe 200 million on the planet at that time, but their records say 1.6 billion died in these wars. Um, so again, that's showing us that this is, in some ways, it's nothing new because we've been through this before. Um, And yet here, the good thing is we're on the ascending path. If we were here on the other end, then it would be very depressing if we were going into a Kali Yuga. That would be a very, very dark situation indeed. But thankfully we've already done that. And it feels like this is a time where it might be different and it might break some of the old patterns.
Um, I I'm of the I watched this unfold. I actually watched it on the news because you see, I see this from a perspective. Number one, I firmly believe that Donald Trump is a demigod. I believe that that was on display on July 13th, 2004, 24, excuse me. Um, I was telling Lynn this the other day. I don't know if you've ever seen when he does in the Oval Office, and particularly when they sit in the chairs, he surrounds himself with gold.
Yeah,
Now, demigods do that. And it goes back way back. Um, in fact, I saw for because I can do that, I can see at times, but I saw Alexander the Great and Trump in the same spirit. And what I witnessed the beginning of this week was incredible. Number one, you saw this man go in and broker a peace that has been impossible for the last, well, ever since the Palestinian state issue, and this goes back uh, way back. Um, so he sits in the Israeli Knesset. The Israelis look at him as a god, the God of peace. Then the world witnessed, he goes into this peace conference with 29 countries, the largest group of Arab representing nations ever. And what I saw these leaders doing was almost paying homage. Now, this is substantial. This is not just I've never seen this. I'm 70 years old and I've never seen anything like that. I've never read about anything like this except for these demigods of the past. And so here in this country, we are so divided in ideologies now where it's extremely toxic and you have to be on your guard or it seeps in. And it seeps in to make you choose a side, this side, that side. So for me personally, I sense that in the ethereal realms, there is this battle going on that it's it's something my consciousness almost reels from. I don't want to really penetrate, but it's happening. So I've said all this to get y'all's perspective on this because you covered the world events and put it in a perspective as well as to, all right, so this is what does this mean?
We've gotten that, when you look, like, I feel pretty sure, like on the inside, that when you look to who he's going to hand it off to ultimately, it could be
If
one.
he makes it.
If, well, yeah, well, no, I think he won't. I think it's always been predetermined that he'll be taken out before his 4 years.
Well, The Simpsons has predicted this.
Yeah.
They said that when I think The Simpsons says, is it going to be 28? I think it's when they showed him in the casket being in the state of mourning in the rotunda.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
that's a weird show, by the way. I mean, I don't know what occult formula they're using, but they've got a periscope into something.
yeah, that guy is like a high level Mason. Yeah, the creator. He really,
Yeah,
really
yeah.
is. But I really think Baron's energy is Octavian, reborn, Caesar Augustus.
Mm.
Um, I don't think that I don't think Trump is Julius Caesar, but the guide said look at his profile and then look through historical personages and you'll find him.
Have you
So
seen the bust of Alexander the Great?
he, it's why in the past I have, but it can't.
Go and look at it again and look at Trump 20 years ago. I
That's
mean,
true
and
too.
it just could be my warped perspective, but I'm thinking that there is something going on here. If Alexander the Great was human, then he was superhuman.
He was a little guy. I remember, as far as stature, that could change too.
Well, if
Uh,
I came back again, I'd like to be 6'8", full head of hair. I mean, yeah, why not?
I yeah, I could see it with the younger Trump.
Yeah.
And I could see that with Barron. Yeah, yeah, I can dig that.
Yeah, Octavian, I feel is. I think Barron, on one timeline, he's the one that solidifies something. But again, which timeline are we going to choose? Can we individually jump away from these timelines and we're still seeing Wayne having his experiences, Cindy having hers, Mike having his, but yet, we're seeing it from a different standpoint. Um,
Well, I
yeah,
think July 13th we jumped timelines. I think in the original timeline, Trump was in fact assassinated.
I really believe that things they have to get much worse before they get better, but that's a very disturbing thought because if you think about it, uh this this these people that we have controlling everything, you really got to kind of pull everything out by its root. And what's
Yeah.
going to happen when you do that? Everything's going to collapse. And that's very frightening because so many people need certain medicines just to live. They might need oxygen tanks, they might. So it just really bothers me to know that, yeah, things really have to seriously crumble before things get better. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And I think in a way we need to isolate ourselves, but come together too. So those
Oh
people,
yeah, yeah, we have to be together. I mean,
yeah,
we it's how we share, it's how we heal, it's how we grow. I
yeah, that
mean,
contact.
exactly. And a lot of what on my channel I try to and we do this is that learn to connect in the spirit to someone. Let's see, I see Gaia. Hello, Gaia. How you doing, sweetie? How's Paul? And I know what Gaia looks like. So I can literally put her image in my mind, and I can speak that to what I'm wanting to that the image of Gaia. And I think that's how it's done in the spirit realm. I mean, I don't know if spirits can speak.
Tele-
I don't know.
it's telepathic. That's like our main mode of communication.
Yeah.
Even out there, like when you run into like alien civilizations coming together, really only when you're at our level here, where we've been in the 3D, do you have like communication problems because they're all telepathic for the most part, so they'll be able to read
Lynn
you.
and I communicate more and more telepathically. You know, I'm having to take her to a lot of doctor visits, and it's strange because we'll see something and we're both thinking the exact same thing. That's telepathy.
Yeah. You're merging. And in my experience, when I do uh see other beings or speak with them, you know, you just need to think there's no names in the ether because you don't need them. You don't need them. So you think of a being and that being is there. It's like, okay, you've already called their name, just by thinking of their frequency.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I've been in the spirit more than I can say many times, and I've never had a problem. In fact, I never thought about this, but it was only when I was doing my paranormal investigations that I began to ask myself, well, how does a spirit know English? I mean, when I left Christianity in the deliverance ministry, it was one of the questions I said, so when did the demon convert to Christianity? I
Right.
mean, people, I don't know if y'all heard this, but the reason why, I believe in the gifts of the Spirit. I believe that there is this Spirit that gives gifts unto humans. And it's maybe that's part of the ascension process. But here was my point, because I questioned my spirit guide and I said, okay, all right. So I walked away from the religion, but how can I still be doing the things that supernaturally I was doing over there? And my guide spoke to me and said, whoever said the Holy Spirit was a Christian?
Right.
Whoever said that the Holy Spirit was a Jew, a Muslim? No, it's none of those things. It's individual. That's where the power comes. And if you know about its gifts, so it's how the manual works, well, then you can operate the buttons much more efficiently.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Right. Yeah, we've
to me, that
encountered
was an epiphany. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
we've encountered many you know interesting personalities that have passed on, like Alois Ermeiler, who was a famous psychic and predicted. Um, well, his prediction is that the war starts in earnest when it's harvest time, fall harvest time in Germany, and that's basically now. About now.
Yeah.
And there would be three assassinations that would take place, and I think Charlie Kirk was the first, and I wonder about two and three. Wondering if 47 is one of those possibly. But what's interesting is he was devout Christian in his life. He was very, very
Charlie?
no Alois Ermeiler,
Okay.
but now on 4D, because he's out of the body, hasn't reincarnated. He's not a Christian anymore. He doesn't have that dogma. So that was just when we were embodied. And again, I think as soon as you get out of body, you have this realization most of the time, not always, because again, traumatic deaths can lead to a lot of confusion.
Stuck.
Yeah, and we've seen that. Like when we were in New Mexico, I think it was our first or second night in this Adobe place that we were renting there, and it was like a regular human person walked in and said, "Hello, hello." We both heard it, and it was a ghost. It was like somebody that had died in an accident coming into the house. Now, the house was empty for a long time, but they could tell that somebody was there. They could feel our energy. And it literally sounded verbal. And I don't know if it was verbal or we just picked it up telepathically. But yeah, I just thought that was pretty wild.
Wow, you just and it's so we knew this ER doctor, and he was telling us on some of the things that he saw with patients who died and those that they could revive. And, he said it's really interesting because he said there were those that came in and terrible trauma, but they seemed to be in a position of peace. Their bodies were just. And he said that there was one that he remembered particularly, kid, I think he said in his late teens, motorcycle accident, and what they brought in where they were bringing in the pieces. But he was able to jump his heart a number of times, and they finally were able to get him back into VFib. But he came back screaming. He came back uh, with, he said, don't let them take me there again. And he was in hell, or at least Dante's version of hell, and it was real to him. He yeah, and he completely changed. He went to the religious side, and yeah. So it's interesting. I would agree with you. It's one of those things. You're right. It mystifies me, and I think it does all of us because we're going to continue from here, no matter how we look at it. And no matter what happens in this country, if we end up having the Civil War and all this other, I believe that we can, for the first time, I saw hope that where we could tap into this thing called peace, that the seed had been planted in the world opposite of war. Now, the question is, who's going to nourish which seed first? And I think it's where folks like us, where we can go and do that work in the 4D, the 5D,
Yeah.
the ethereal realm.
Yeah.
And I tell you, I believe that there's a reward for us. I mean, there is a great cloud of witnesses that are working for us on that other side as well. We just gotta tap into it and make it happen.
It's a lot of natural talking. What I do is I talk to my guides just like I'm talking to you, like I'm talking to Mike. And if I'm having a problem, I'm very upfront with them and I'm telling them I need help with this situation. Please help. And then the next day, by golly, something happens, lo and behold. But if I blank and I don't think to talk to my guides, which I do, I get under so much stress, I don't remember. I'll just kind of continue down this spiraling path until I do remember to talk to my guides. So yeah, those of us who know that there's a different realm and different beings, I think it's very important to talk to your guides and angels and ask them for help, in your area or other areas. I run into a lot of people that have a very powerful visualization abilities, and they can visualize certain things in areas far, far away and make change. And I think people forget how strong they are in that way. Some
Yes.
stronger than others. We all have different areas of strengths for a reason. We're a big old puzzle, and we got to figure out how to put it together for the world that we want.
And some pieces of the puzzle have many different attributes to it. And there's other pieces that are just simply one color, one aspect, one particular talent.
But still needed, very much
Yeah.
needed to fill it in, right?
Because mine's really psychedelic. So, it requires a lot of pieces.
Psychedelic. Yeah. So there's the
And a lot of
psychedelic where
different colors,
King goes. He goes up there. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. And I've learned something else too. And then this is take it for what it's worth. But, you know, the spirits, those that were here one time, those who haven't, but they're present. They're just a minute millisecond out of phase. That's how close we are. They like someone who's humorous, someone who knows how to laugh. So when you're dealing with the spirits or with your spirit guide or guides, learn to laugh, tell them a joke or two. Trust me, they've been around a while, but they haven't heard everything. So think about it.
Yeah. A thank you too. I tend to forget when I ask them for something and I get something. sometimes I forget to say thank you, and they notice that too. They do have emotions like that. They can get butt hurt.
They're,
So
I
They
mean,
do.
they're
yeah,
really even like the more advanced ones, that ones we might think of as very advanced teachers, they still have everything we have. All the same feelings flow through them. You know, maybe they just are able to control their emotions a little bit better,
a lot better.
but a lot better.
Yeah.
I can tell you, and I have this inert part of me inside that makes up that's who I am. But I've known that there was a goddess. I think maybe always. Sometimes I'm living in denial, which is not a river in Egypt, but most people live on it. Um, did you get that? Yeah, I
Got it.
did.
Did my thing.
But uh, Fortuna, and I got to tell you, she's quite a lady, and it's amazing when you talk about good fortune because even what seems to be bad fortune, if there is such a thing, really turns out to be really good fortune. So, as I see the time on this, I'd like us to talk about now, Mike. You don't have to talk about what you went through unless you want to, because I we didn't talk about this prior. But Mike, you went through an event on Sunday. Do you want to talk about that, or
Yeah, I mean, this is where again, I always like lean into the guides to, get what's really going on. So yeah, I just woke up in the middle of the night and it was really unusual because I felt like a lot of tightness in the chest. And that's unusual with me. Like this morning we walked about a mile or so and I did 45 minutes on the elliptical. So I hit the elliptical probably 20 or either that or the exercise bike probably 28 out of 30 days. I almost every single day do cardio. And so I know that my cardiovascular system is good. So it was weird because the tightness wouldn't go away. So yeah, but it didn't feel completely like it was a heart attack, but it was something that definitely got us cautious. And
High blood pressure. It was
yeah, the blood
concerning.
pressure was like way, way up and like literally 115 over like 179, it was way up. And the guides came across with it's a major purge. So just hang on tight and fast, which I did. And then the next day, blood pressure's down to like 115 over 75, and it's gone. And not only that it's gone, but it's like I felt very uplifted after. Like, it was a huge purge. And, you were going through something too. We talked to quite a few people that had very, very similar occurrences. So this is like emotional center, it's purging traumas. We've all been through trauma. There's
yeah,
not a single person, even with the most blessed life, that doesn't go through trauma. And it could be even past life trauma, or it could be also DNA trauma, because again, we're at that churning of a whole yuga, a whole age. So there's so much work being done right now on us. And like what we were talking about before, too, the ether is changing. So the elements come from the ether. Your body is made up of the elements. So our bodies are changing. Everything is changing. And it could be very, very traumatic and dramatic too.
yeah. And for my case, it's strange because it literally woke up. It was 3 o'clock, but I woke up freezing. And it's not, we keep our house, I think right now that the average temperature is 74, 75. So it's not cold in this house. But I woke up and it was the type of cold that I felt something had been feeding or something had drained or something because you can ask Lynn, I sleep hot. I mean, I sleep really hot. But yeah, so and I couldn't shake the feeling all day Monday that something happened here. And I kept on thinking to myself. And so I get by myself and I'm trying to figure this out. And what I've figured out so far is that, yeah, there was a visit. I just So something, yeah. Anyway, I don't know in the chat room if other people have done that or not, or if experienced it, but yeah,
Yeah, we
I
did.
think something was afoot.
Oh yeah, yeah. These are huge energy waves coming in, even if it's just a smallish CME or the solar wind. There's so much hitting us right now, and it's literally changing us, and in some cases, turning on DNA that's been turned off for generations.
I'm just trying to read in some of the comments in here. Lost in Space says, felt like another shift.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I can believe that. Yeah,
And
it's quite interesting because I'm telling you, and I think you're right that I think we're going to see an activation on a level. I keep sensing in a past life or whatever, but there seems to be a time when humans, hybrids, however you want to talk us, well, there was a time when we operated more on telepathy. The spoken word wasn't so much spoken as it was thought. And I don't know, I could be wrong on this, but I think before it's all said and done, that's going to come back. Maybe there might be a group of hybrid humans out there that will really begin to display these gifts that I think come to us on the other side. I often wonder about this. If we don't practice telepathy here, how are you going to learn it over there? You know,
it's like riding a bike,
I
you know. I think we're gonna just know. I didn't feel like I missed a beat when I was in front of Source. I didn't skip anything. Everything was just at my fingertips, and I wanted to know a couple of things. And I wanted to know if love was real because I was very, very traumatized.
mm.
And and Source came back, and it's like, I don't know, it's like I asked Source, is love even real? I was very snarky with Source. I was very angry. Is it even real? And then it's like Source throws this big old love bomb right at me. And then I felt my whole energy field just light up with just pure love. It was
Love
crazy.
it.
It's like, is it real? Check this out. Yeah, it was like that.
seems like a
Someone,
lot of
someone,
people, a lot of people did have something, lost in space. So glad you guys said something about Monday. And Susan Donahue was sick with chills and stuff. So yeah, I think that purging, depending on what chakra in particular you're going through, can be very, very traumatizing. So yeah, I think we're going through just major change. But when you look at it, think about how they got us prepped for this time, because you have like all the Marvel Comics stuff with the mutants and Magneto and his abilities, and then you get hybrid type abilities with what was the one that has the exoskeleton, or Wolverine, all
yeah.
all these modern mythologies, they're going back to when we were last in the Bronze Age, and we had all these different types of beings, and some with amazing superpowers, and
The
you know,
demigods.
yep,
I mean, that's all the Avengers and the super that's what they are. I never realized that until recently that, wait a minute, you know, it's like these are just this is Olympus. This is what this is. I can go back into Babylon. Um, by the way, allow me to do a little bit of self-promoting here. I'm excited to announce that, and we're firming up the dates, but I have Dr. Lynn of the Anunnaki Connection. She will be coming on as a guest.
Wow.
And I am so excited because I can disclose this because so I read her books, reading another one. And so I wrote to her and I said, I'd like to get you an interview, but I wanted to get into. And so my whole thing for me when I left Christianity was, all right, so there's these huge gaps. They never told you about Sumer. They never told you about the Indus Valley. They never told you about India. No, 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 no. You never hear this. It all started right in this little place here. So for me, As a former minister of the gospel, um, my question has always been if Abraham, came from which that's what it says in the book of Genesis, which was in the section called the Chaldees of the Sumerian Empire. All right. I never, 50 years, Mike Cindy, I read that book, taught that book, never questioned my mind. Well, who the hell where's Sumer? Oh, what
Right.
is this? Nothing. No, no. So for me now, in reconstructing the core values of myself in my spiritual life, was all right. So why did Abram leave Sumer? He knew who Enki was. He knew the gods. His family worshipped Inanna, the moon goddess, the goddess of fertility. So this cat picks up, and by the way, they weren't camels, they were horses. Camels didn't were introduced into the Mid East until like the second century BCE. But anyway, so he picks up all of his stuff, goes out into the wilderness, and then meets this god that no one's written about. I have no idea where this God come from. And then this God presents itself and says, well, the thing you've got to do is that you've got to sacrifice a living animal. So for her, I am so just honored to have Dr. Lynn on. We're going to be discussing that because, as she said, that's been one of the core parts of her thesis. Because
Uh,
you think about it, folks, this changed everything. The world worships whatever Abraham met in the desert. We don't
yeah.
know. It says that he calls himself a lot of different names. So is this really Inyiel? Is this Enki? So anyway, folks.
That's always been like one of my favorite subjects. So, I was doing deep dives into each one of the, you know, Anunnaki or Sumerian beings. So where it occurred is where Nanar sin was dominant. And that was a lunar god, a moon god. And it's just fascinating to look at that because boy, some people that are Muslim have like tried to correct me when I always think of Islam, I think of the crescent moon. It just that whole symbol always comes up into mind because, again, it's coming from Nanar sin. We got sin in the Bible. It's falling short of, the mark, etc.
Yeah, all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God.
Well, why is a deity called sin? and,
Beats
and
the sin out of me.
yeah, right. And you were talking about where, Ur of the Chaldees and the
Yeah.
Chaldean, read the Chaldean Genesis right next to Genesis, and you'll find, like 12 lines that give you what you only get like maybe 5 words of in the Bible. You'll find there's like 12 lines. They go into a lot of depth, but they're talking about Enlil, Enki, Nanarsin, Ninhursag, Marduk, etc. So it's not like God and Lord. It's all these different individuals that all become just God or Lord. Yeah,
Makes my head spin. It's like, okay, so Lord of host means God of war. But and you're going, but so how can you have this God who's this angry, vengeful God, and then tell me that you got this God of love? I mean, what did he get, a schizophrenic drug or what the hell's going on here? But anyway, yeah. And the final for myself when I made the epiphany breakthrough was that the proof of this is that when this God wanted Abraham, which is now the father of many nations, to circumcise himself. So that told me right there that that is not the God of Genesis 1:26 or the Genesis of 2, 7, and 9. We got a different God here because he deliberately committed sacrilege to the body. Dun, 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 dun. Anyway,
absolutely. Well, I know you're going to have a good time with her. And if you ever want to do another one, I'd love to join in. And I'm sure Cindy would too.
Love to do that. Yeah. So when we get the date firmed on this, it's like this is going to be exciting because she's bringing a knowledge that, and Michael, you're well versed in it, but many are not. That is that all right? So because they took the pieces off the board. We're playing the game, but we're playing the game handicap because we didn't realize they took major pieces off the board.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fascinating. And the more you uncover it, they merge, just like Nanar Sin is emerging. You'll Amun Ra, that's emerging. So we even know that that was just traditionally what they did was combine different entities, different deities into a new one and merge them. And they so tangled the web that I think they think they won't figure it out until it's too late.
Until they ascend.
Yeah.
And then I got this crazy thought that says, well, Steiger, you remember what the web is. That's the internet. You remember it's a net,
Yes. Yes.
What's that one song? Set me free, why don't you, babe? Woo! So anyway, this
Just one little thing, because, again, Susan was mentioning the circumcision. It's so interesting, too, that RFK Jr. was basically saying we shouldn't circumcise anymore.
I heard that.
Yeah, and I think really that's a big, big blow. He's trying to give a poke in the ribs to the system.
It's been funky all the time on this. I mean, it's like, okay, but and that's where this lack of knowledge comes in. Because you on these subjects, you look at the religious organizations, this your pastor, your priest or whatever. And they don't know what the hell they're talking about either. But they'll tell you, and then you believe it, and then you pass that, and you've seen that's how it gets started. Look at the puppy dog.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything y'all would like to say, Cindy? Is there anything, hun, that you want to point out before we? This has been fun, by the way, folks. I love it, love it, love it.
A lot of fun. This was a lot of fun. Well, Rama says hi. He's, when we do our energy work, he's really the healer. So him and Nita and Sassy, they really do the work. No, just, it's a difficult time. So give yourself space, give yourself grace, allow yourself that time and space to just go through difficulties. We need to. You don't get there by just gliding. And fortunately, you got to break through something, and when you do that breakthrough, it hurts. So, yep.
Yeah. What's the song I'm hearing in Ringo? It don't come easy.
No,
No,
it didn't.
no.
So, thank you, Wayne.
No, it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun, especially going down these deep dives. Sometimes we get off topic. Sorry.
Sorry.
John Candy said it best in the movie Planes, Trains, and Automobile when they're driving in the car to Chicago, and he looks over at Steve Martin and he says, I'm like the mighty river. I just go with the flow. So it has been fun. Michael, we got anything to say before we cut out of here?
No, just I would say again, take it easy at this point in time, because it's redoing every cell in your body, which is part of this process, can be very taxing. So if you feel like you need to take an easy day, take an easy day. Recognize too, a lot of times when that urge to go take a nap comes on you, it's downloads, or maybe you have to upload something. It could definitely be messages coming from the guides. And I think as long as we are open to it, it's going to get easier and easier to communicate with the guides.
Yeah. Yep.
And remember to speak favor to the gods and the goddesses. They appreciate it.
They do. Please and thank you.
Yeah. And, remember kissing builds up the muscles of the smile. So,
Yes.
give them a kiss. I mean, if you've got something that like was an unexpected windfall, man, give them a high five, some recently just came in, and there's been times where I'll just do a little dance, and I tell them to come on, and the spirits like to dance. Brewer and Shipley had the best song, the song Ricky Tai Tai. I mean, you want to get the spirits on your side, bring that. Or I can also tell you that they love James Brown. I'm telling you, these spirits over there, they got soul, baby. I'm telling you, they got the real soul. So put a little James Brown on, get up there and dance a little bit. It's good for you, gets the cardio going. And besides that, shake your booty a little bit. Doesn't hurt. Might as well shake it while you got one.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. My wife tells me I still have a fine looking ass. So, at 70, it ain't too late. That's all I got to say. Yeah. All
Awesome.
right. Love y'all. See y'all next Thursday, hopefully. Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, we're good.
Okay. All right. And I'll try to be on tomorrow. And again, hit the like button. Make sure to give a little love over there to Mike and Cindy on their channel. And folks, we'll see each other on Friday because, tomorrow technically never comes. So anyway. All right. Michael and Cindy, appreciate it. Thank you all.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.